you saying the words, Odin changes to Wodan, and Godan changes from Godan and Wodan to God and Wod. And every middle of the week, we go through Hump Day, which is Wednesday.
Question.
Hold it in.
Gotcha.
Now, we realize everybody has always had a problem with Wednesday. Why is it spelled that way? It's because it says Woden's Day. Woden's Day. Now, please look this up. If you get a pen and paper, you might as well ask it now.
I'll put it on my phone.
No, you're here now. Go ahead and ask it.
No, that's pen and paper.
Go ahead.
I got you. Okay, so God, Norse title for their deity.
Yes.
Within the Western understanding, God is a title. So where did the transliteration come in?
Excellent. It tells you right here. The Angles, the Saxons, and the Franks of Western Europe, right? Remember the Celtics and the Norse Scandinavians, right? This was their God. In the beginning of Christianity, please do. Just write it down. Just write it down. What does this mean? Just write it down.
Yes.
Okay,
write
trust
down
me,
your
this is
questions.
easy compared to where we're gonna go. Trust me. All right. I wanted you to know there's gonna be a lot of things. We're gonna fly through some of these slides. I got like 200 slides. So I want you to just have the information in your brain and make sure you write down the questions. Okay. But yes, when we're dealing with the word, like right now, your name is Kamau. If I'm talking about Kamau, I'm talking about you, and I'm not talking about Shango. So when we're dealing with words and language, you must know who we're talking on and calling. So the question is, obviously, Shango would ask me, well, what did the Africans worship? Right? So clearly, in Kemet, you see Amen and Ra. The reason there's two there is because Kemet, Egypt, was split into two. Right? So northern Kemet worship Ra, southern Kemet worship Amen. I could have that in reverse. But Amen represented the unseen force, Ra represented the seen force. Now, you might recognize the way it's written here. Normally it'd be written Amun or Aman, but I wrote it this way on purpose, right? Because this is the same Amen that we say after the Abrahamic prayers. There's a reason for that, and we're going to go into that later. Like I said, save your questions. He's represented with the white robe. He's the all-high God of West Africa, Yoruba specifically, right? And you don't worship him specifically directly. You show your reverence and worship to him through the Orisha or the middle deities. Peace and love, sister, welcome. In Igbo culture, Chukwu is the high god. Try and squeeze over if you want to see the presentation. That's okay, don't worry about that. Chukwu, right, is the high god of the Igbo people. Now he's the one that dropped Eri down from the sky, who started the whole world. But in Igbo cosmology, the first man, he dropped him down, gave him the yams to feed his people, right? Moving forward, again, these are all things that you can take and just look up yourself so you can find out the mythology. There's entire college level courses on every single slide that we got here right now, okay? All right, so why do we believe in supernatural things? Now this is a psychological thing that happened from the beginning of humanity, okay? When we start as actual humans, right? In the early development, when you hear a sound from the bushes, from the wilderness behind that tree, you don't know if it's a lion coming to get you. You don't know if it's a rhinoceros. But you hear that sound, you gotta get to safety. Now you could be wrong. It may not have been a rhinoceros, right? But you move to safety anyways, right? Now, at some level, we start adding agency to these things. We hear the wind blow, we think, oh man, that must mean this. Or the last time the wind blew like this, that meant this, right? So we start trying to add agency to it. Eventually, it turns into deities, right? So now you got the god of the wind, you got the god of the sun, you got the god of the earth, right? So, moving forward into belief and understanding, a new, more modern philosophical understanding is Pascal's wager, right? Basically meaning, do you believe in this thing or not? If you don't believe in this thing, you might receive infinite punishment, right? Is that what it says in certain books? If you don't believe, yes, all right. But if you do believe, right, you will receive that infinite reward. If you don't believe, or if you believe and there is no God, you face no loss for real. If you don't believe and there is no God, you face no loss. But if you do believe, you'll get the reward. if there is a God. If there is a God, that's the key piece. So, throughout history, humans move through the whole world. All right, we know that humanity started here. There's many debates about that, but the consensus is humanity started in Central West Africa, right, and spread out. That's, yes, Central East Africa. Thank you. So with that same mentality, coming from the prairie, coming from the plains, you know, making sure you're safe, and adding that same agency to things, that same mindset traveled throughout the world, right? And we can see, obviously, we just talked about, you know, Sudan, Central East Africa. We just talked about Kemet. We talked about how they moved over to China and India, right? Now, mind you, these articles that you see in right here, we're gonna move through them sort of fast, but these come from Chinese and Indian researchers and archaeologists, okay? You see here again, the Shang dynasty gives credit to the African and the Negrito and Africoid ancestry. You can see that in Japan, the Heritage of Japan website talks about the amazing Jomon people and how the African man from Mozambique was the first samurai in Japan. They say that, you know, you gotta have at least one drop of blood, black blood, in order to be a samurai in Japan, right? That's what they say. Look it up. Make sure you take notes. In Tasmania, Sister Truganini, right here, was the last known indigenous resident. But they had a religion that they worshiped there too. You know what I mean? We don't know what that is because it's completely wiped out. Can you imagine? You spent your whole life in something sacred. It's just wiped out, gone. We'll literally never know the history of these people as far as what the original ancestors worshiped. Moving forward, coming across the land bridge into America, maybe 12,000, some of these dates can go, but we can say 12,000 for now. Coming into America, you see the indigenous Americans, right? Native Americans, whatever you want to call them. Their original spiritual systems have been lost in history, right? Some of the things you see now, Anyanwu and Sagali still survive today, but at a distance from its original African connection. We know moving the other way, here from West Africa, many people have seen this map, seeing Mansa Musa being the richest man in the world. Everybody's seen that? The reason is because he presided over the entire of West Africa and all of the gold mines that were there. All of that gold was technically of his kingdom at the time. So of course he was the richest man in the world. Before Mansa Musa, Abu Bakr sent boats that we know of across to America, okay? These boats and fragments from these boats was found later on by Columbus and De las Casas. And they say it in their documentation. Yeah, in the journal. Now, people question whether or not the Mali kings took that ride, but because people had some money and some time, they actually did the experiment. So the Ra 1 and Ra 2 experiment are mapping the trips of the Mali kings, and they were successful only to the Barbados Islands. Now, that's important because they only took 2 boats. Now imagine the Mali king and the kingdoms, how long they've been trying it and trying it and trying it. You're talking about thousands of years people had practiced getting across, so of course it worked, right? So this is how we got to where we were around the world. So we started talking about slavery. Cristobal Colon, Bartolome de las Casas, and Pedro Nino El Negro were some of the first people that came over with slaves, right? We know that Christopher Columbus was a part of the transatlantic slave trade. He was also part of the Arab slave trade. I'll show you that in a minute, but just the key point of this is to see the African Moors taking the West African indigenous as slaves to transport the European and Arab merchants, okay? I'm gonna show you how we got to that. People talk about how we taught the European how to do certain things. We taught them how to do that same maritime travel. We taught them how to bathe, we taught them music and things like that. Well, in my research, I found a very specific person who actually was very responsible for doing it, a man named Zeriat. He, again, you see him taught him about toothpaste, perfumes, fragrant oils, deodorant, music and literacy and things like that. How to use wheat, sugar, orange, lemon, and things like this. All during the Dark Ages, this is how they came out. We ended up teaching, I'm gonna say we, the African Moors ended up teaching them how to come out. We're gonna get to why this is important in a minute. Okay, so, well, we're here. Religion and slavery, before and after, right? So what was happening before the slave trade? Here in West Africa, you see this yellow piece here. That yellow piece is ancient Ghana. Remember in school they taught us about Ghana, Mali, and Songhai? Okay, ancient Ghana, the real original name was Ouagadougou. Okay, Ouagadougou, W-A-G-A-D-U, Ouagadougou. Now, a lot of us have a mindset or a memory of the old kung fu movies talking about Shaolin, right, the monks and things like that. For lack of a better reference, that's how Ouagadougou was. Okay, it was a peaceful kingdom, right? Empire, I should say, that only expanded through peace and through conversion to their religion. Their religion would not tolerate slavery. So in order for you to convert or to even be an ally, you had to disown any slave. It's the only religion that we may talk about today that won't have any ties to actual slavery. So after the Ouagadougou kingdom, well, let's go to this piece. You see here, these red lines here are the trade routes that ancient Ouagadougou had. People came from far and